In this video, we're going to show you how to program your dwell setting for the TIPPMANN 98 Custom Platinum Series. Now, it's very rare that you would ever have to change your dwell setting. The dwell setting stock from the factory is 8 milliseconds, which is usually plenty. But if you ever run into the scenario where you turn your marker on and you have a fresh battery, you know it's a good battery, but when you pull the trigger, you hear it clicking in between each shot that's fired, and it doesn't seem like it's getting the gun to fire every time, you may want to try turn up your dwell setting. And in this video, we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. We're first going to start off by pulling and holding our trigger down. Going to go ahead and turn on our board while holding the trigger. Should go from green to red. And the red is actually your first programming menu, which is your dwell menu. To access that menu, all you have to do is pull and hold down the trigger, and the light should shut off. Once the light's shut off, you can let go of the trigger, and it'll flash for what the current setting is on the board. In this case, it'll flash 8 times. Now we want to bump it up from 8 to 10. So I'll go ahead and pull it 10 times. Once we've pulled the trigger 10 times, it should go to a red, green, and orange really fast, and then go back to the solid red. Now, I usually recommend that you increase your dwell 2 milliseconds at a time. If you ever get to the point where you're up past 12 milliseconds, I would have to say that there's something internally wrong with the circuit board, solenoid, or capacitor, and you can actually call our TIPPMANN service department for help with that. So now, once we have it programmed, we'll go ahead and turn our board off, and then we'll go ahead and turn it on just normally without pulling the trigger. And we'll go ahead and test it. One thing you'll notice about the dwell setting is that when you turn your dwell setting up, you will notice that it does seem to make a little bit more noise with the solenoid. It clicks a little harder, a little louder, which is normal of turning up the dwell setting. And that is how you change your dwell setting on the TIPPMANN 98 Custom Platinum. In this video, we're going to show you how to properly adjust the debounce setting on your TIPPMANN 98 Custom Platinum series. Now, most cases, we usually never adjust the debounce. And for some of those out there that don't know what the debounce is, the definition of debounce is the amount of time the trigger switch must be stable before recognizing another trigger pull or another shot. So, just an example of that would be say you're out there playing, you're shooting a couple shots, and another shot just kind of like popped in there, as you were letting go of the trigger pull. That would indicate, that your debounce may be set a little too low. But at the same time, that could also be a mechanical issue with the marker, either a bad rear bolt and sear or a low air source. So, like I said, we don't usually recommend adjusting the debounce, but if you know that your rear bolt and sear is good and your air source is full, and for some odd reason the electronics is allowing the gun to fire an extra shot or bouncing, we'll show you how to adjust that. Now we'll go ahead, we'll start off by flipping the gun over, and we're going to pull the trigger and hold the trigger down, and then we're also going to turn the grip on. It should go from green to solid red. The solid red is actually your dwell setting. Pull the trigger one time and it'll go to your debounce setting, which is the solid green. Now the factory default for that is 20 milliseconds. Depending on how your marker is firing, you can actually increase that to eliminate the bounce, or you can decrease it to actually allow a little bit more, a little less time in between trigger pulls. So we'll go ahead and we'll adjust that. We'll actually turn it up. We'll pretend that this marker is actually firing an extra shot or two after the trigger's being pulled. So we'll go ahead, we'll pull that trigger down. Like I said, the light will shut off, and then it'll flash for the current setting. Like I said, it will flash 20 times. While it's flashing, we can actually start programming it, and I'm going to go from 20 to 25. Okay, now we had 25 trigger pulls, and it'll flash red, green, and orange really fast, which will indicate that it accepted the programming. Then from there you can go ahead and turn your circuit board off, and we'll go ahead, we'll turn it back on. And then from there you can actually go back to the chronograph or out to the field and test fire your marker just to make sure it's not adding any extra shots. In this case, it's going to be really hard for us to test that because we do not have an air source attached to this gun and we're not shooting paint out of it. But that's the basic, programming of your Debounce on the TIPPMANN 98 Custom Platinum Series. In this video, we're going to show you how to perform a factory reset on the TIPPMANN 98 Custom Platinum Series with the E-trigger. We're going to go ahead and flip our gun over to the side here, and we're going to turn our power button on. But while you're turning the power button on, to perform the reset, you're just going to push and hold it down for 10 seconds. And it should go from that orange to a solid red. Once it goes solid red, you can let go and it'll flash a couple times and then completely shut down. And that's how you perform the factory reset. You can go ahead and turn the circuit board back on and check your settings. And the factory reset, as far as the settings go, your dwell will be 8 milliseconds, your debounce will be 20, your rate of fire will be 15, and your firing mode will be the semi-automatic. So we'll go ahead and we'll test that. As you can see, it's firing in the semi-automatic mode, and all your settings should be set to the factory default. So we'll go ahead and we'll shut our circuit board back off. And that is how you perform a factory reset on the TIPPMANN 98 Custom Platinum Series.